Welcome back everyone to the fourth video of this introduction to the Unreal Engine series. In this video we are going to talk a little bit about lighting and post-processing. Now, little disclaimer, I am no expert in lights. I am not a lighting artist. There are people out there that do this for a full-time job. They have many years experience in this, and so you cannot expect me to provide you with the same knowledge. I unfortunately do not have that, but I will just give you the basic information that I have, which is enough for me to basically get my work done. If I want things to look even better, of course I need a lighting expert, but just to get you going, let's not forget this is, I use this for previs, so in previs lighting doesn't have to be all that. So that's a little disclaimer, just so that you know. If you're in search of a perfect expert lighting guidance, this video might not be for you. But if you're just looking to just set up some basic lights to make sure that your scene looks okay and you don't want to get super technical, then this is the video for you. Right. With that said, let's move on. So in our previous video, we quickly builded an environment, which is the one that you're looking at right here. I've modified a few little things in the meantime. So basically what happened, I forgot to fix the exposure, so I'll quickly tell you what I did in the last few seconds. I'll get out the camera and let's see. So a few things that I did. In the post-process volume, one thing, yeah, here, bloom, I turned on bloom. Okay, bloom is this, I'll press G, is that little thing here, see, the lights. And I lowered the intensity to, or I think the intensity was here, I'm not sure. Normally it's at, that's the normal intensity. A bit too strong for my liking, so I put it to 0.2, and then I have some bloom effect. Bloom effect is not really realistic, but it works in some sci-fi type of projects. I wouldn't use it if you're doing fantasy, medieval type of stuff. It just looks awkward. So it's not very realistic either, bloom. It's just a cheap way of creating some effects. But in this case, just for these quick lights, kind of worked somewhat, right? So that's one thing, right? That's still in your post-process volume under lens. Then the second one is exposure, which is a big one. Exposure is basically, if I were to turn this off, look, I'll just turn them off. And let's see, if I were to turn that off, what happens is that your scene, and I'll put them back to standard actually. Let's turn them the way they were, right? If you were to turn this on for the very first time, this is what will happen, right? You'll get this, right? This is what happens to your eyes. For example, if you're in an environment where the light is super strong, this is what happens, and then you get out of it and see how this starts adapting. I'll show you in an exterior shot in a second to better explain this, but basically what your exposure does, yeah, your minimum and your max, is that if you put it to 1, for example, and 1, then you get a constant, right? That means no matter what you do, where you move, your exposure will be the same. But if you want to mimic real life, right, your eyes, they adapt. When you're driving down like a tunnel, and the tunnel is dark, and all of a sudden you get at the end of the tunnel, you know, the environment around you gets lighter very quickly. It's like this big light effect. That's what this does, right? If you set it up a certain way. Now, you can also use it basically to modify a little bit of the exposure in the room. Okay, if you keep it close to each other, you can just modify it just a tiny little bit so that darker areas light up a bit more and so forth. You can get some shots to look a bit lighter, for example, right? There are many different ways of doing this. But that's another thing that I've done. Okay, so I modified my exposure. Here I didn't touch anything anymore. And the exponential height, yeah, this was something that I was looking for yesterday, and it's the fog density, but I kept on looking at the directional scattering exponent. I think that's the one I was playing around with. Oh no, sorry, this one. Scattering distribution. right? That's the one I kept on playing with when actually all I wanted to do was this. Look at, you see this light? Right, let's go to the intensity and let's crank this up to 1. Boom, that's what happens. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to recreate this effect. Really good for outdoor scenes, so when you bring your fog intensity. However, you do have to turn on volumetric fog. If you don't have it on, it doesn't work, right? So it's very important, because if you do that, you'll just have this. See, if I just bring this back down to this, it basically thickens your fog. That's what that does, right? Your fog intensity thickens your fog, right? But if you want something a little bit more realistic, you can use volumetric fog, right? That looks better. And then you get these fun little scenes like this, right? And then you get some fog inside the apartment as well, but not really what I was going for, right? But I did want it a little bit. So if you put it to, let's say, 0.2, for example, so 0.2, then you can have a little bit of, your lights start showing a little bit of, yeah, kind of like a little fog layer. It's not much, but a tiny little bit, right? And it's little things, you do notice it in your scene when you're working with it. So that's another thing that I played around with, and then you could do a whole bunch of stuff with this, but again, I'm not going to pretend that I'm an expert and I know exactly what all these things do, so I'm just going to steer away from it. So these are some of the modifications that I did here in the indoor apartment. I moved the reflections, the sphere reflection capture to change the reflection on the windows because it was showing this door. So now when you look out, you see the computer. Right? That's what sphere reflection capture does. It just basically, this part, it's mapping that there, and then when you go onto a reflective surface, that's what you're going to see. That's how it works. That's a sphere reflection capture. Right. We're going to get out of this scene, and we're going to look at a outdoor scene and light it from scratch. Okay, I think that would be a whole lot more valuable to you guys than looking at this, because there's still a million things you could do with this. Okay, you could make this very cool and make the lighting here, for example, very low, and turn this into like these typical hacker scenes where there's barely any light in the apartment, and almost all your light is coming from the emissive lights here. See, these are emissive lights. When I click on it and you go to materials, I'm not going to do it now, but if I double click on material, like I did in the previous video, you will see that there is an emissive component to it, and you can crank that up, and then that can light your scenes. And that is very effective. It really works really well, especially for these type of scenes. Right, with that said, we are going to go to the outdoor level. You guys don't have this, obviously, but it's something that will help. Yeah, sure, I'll save this. So this is what it looks like, which is perfectly normal. All I have is a whole bunch of static meshes, and you can't see them because I made sure that there is no light. Let's go to unlit. There you go. That's what we got, right? So that I did this already in advance so that we can start off with something. Right. I'm quickly going to create a folder, and I'm going to call this world lighting. I'm going to put an exclamation mark in front of it because it follows the logic of the alphabet. So this one will come first, right? Okay, so that's the only reason. You could also use a dash or number 1 or whatever, but I just like to keep the world lighting always as my very first folder so that I know where it is. Okay, let's get rid of this and let's start lighting this place, right? Let's turn on the lights, or off, basically, put it lit, and obviously there's nothing. So we're going to start with a very simple directional light. Okay, so bring in the directional light, and I'm going to also turn it into a movable light so that we don't have to build our objects all the time. Right? Now there are some things that you do need to build, okay, like a bounce light, that you do need to build. I do not have a RTX card for all that fun immediate dynamic lighting. I don't have that. Ray tracing is not a part of this. If you have a RTX card, might be that it works for you. Again, I don't know. I don't have one of these, So I'm not sure if that happens immediately with that. I assume it does. I mean, that's what ray tracing is all about. But here, stuff like indirect lighting, you're still going to have to do some bounce light simulations and stuff. So we'll get to that in a second. Right, so directional light, right? I'm going to put that into my world lighting. And directional light, all it is just basically you can pretend that it's a light from the sun, and this is where your light's coming from, right? So these are the shadows that it's casting, and here's your intensity, 10 lux, and you've got your different type of light color, temperature, all that stuff. We're just going to skip all that for now. We're just going to leave it at as is, right? I do know that your indirect lighting intensity, that is where you can modify your bounce light, but you won't be able to see it yet because that you have to bake, right? We'll get to that in a second. Okay, then the other thing that you might want to add, so one is a directional light. Start off with that. Then maybe something that would work and would help is a skylight, right? A skylight and a directional light, they remind me a lot of each other. And the skylight, basically what you can do is you can import a HDRI map, for example. You can view it like that, basically. Like if I were to do this, look at the shadows, and if I let go, see, it immediately updates, right? So now we have different type of shadows because we're using this. A bit more realistic, but not fully, okay? Because there would never be this much light in an interior shot like this. It works maybe a little bit better for this one, where you have dark shadows over here, and then some things. So again, you always have to look around which one works best. But that's what a skylight does. Right? But we're not going to work with a HDRI map. We're going to work with our captured scene, right? And with our captured scene right now, this is what we get. We get this very dark type of shadows, and especially here, interiors, forget about it. There's absolutely nothing to see. Right. So what we're going to do is the following. We are going to, you can also increase the intensity of this one, by the way. If I were to increase the intensity to, say, 2, obviously for this one, again, this needs to be built. So I can increase it as much as I want, or 10 or whatever. You're not really going to see much of a difference here. And you, only way, that's another thing, the only way, if you were to skylight, you turn this off or on, makes no difference. The only way you can see it is by effect world. Now, right now you're not going to see anything because we're working with a captured scene. And our captured scene is black, so you've got absolutely nothing. So what can we do to change that? To change that, we are going to bring in a sky, right? It's like a sky sphere. And that's called a BP sky sphere. We'll bring that in, and then we got ourselves a sky, right? That's something that we can work with. Now, the very first thing you might want to do is to link your directional light, this one, to your sky, so that your sun, wherever it may be, here it is right now, will be in the right position, right? So here, according to this one, it's pointing down. So we could never have this type of lighting. How do we do that? Well, while I'm going to put that also in world lighting, maybe here, and we do this here. So we go to a BP sky sphere. We click on directional light actor, we go here, none, and we select directional light, right? So now your sun is positioned in the right place. If I were to select my light, and if I were to move this one, okay, your shadows will update. If you want to update your PP sky sphere, you can do refresh material, and it will refresh, sorry. And there you go. And again, now, if we were to go to our skylight and we try to, wait, the intensity scale is at, see, now if I put it to 1, now we have something to work with, right? Because there is a sky. And with the sky, you can start seeing lights. Again, I have it on a captured scene. I should put it to a, yeah, on the captured scene. There we go. And now you've got this, right? Is it realistic? No. But this is the capture we have right now. And the capture says that if you look at the colors, this is what we got, right? So again, there are a lot of things. I mean, these are all linked, right? The sphere, because the sphere is here, that's why you're capturing this type of information. So your skylight works with this one now, right? So just know that this is not what we're using the HDRI. right? And the intensity here, if I were to bring it up to 2, now you are going to start seeing changes, right? Based on your skylight, right? If I wanted that less intense, I can put it to 0.5 or whichever one, so that you get this type of lighting. Remember, if I were to change, where's my direction light? Right here. If I were to change the position of it, bring it down a bit, for example, and I do a quick, where is this? Back to BP Sky Sphere, I refresh the material, right? So it will create a bit of a different, let's see if I can, where is this? Skylight, sorry, skylight. Do a quick recapture. Yeah, there you go, and it will update that as well. So the colors are now blue, which makes more sense because their sky's blue. Right, so that's how you get this done. That's how you get these type of things done. Let's see. Now, obviously, let's see. If we were to go to here, we're already casting shadows. We have all this stuff. Let's say we want this. I mean, the sun looks very bland right here, right? And it's not very realistic, by the way, because also the trees here, yeah, they're perfectly lit on this side, which makes sense. But trees on this side wouldn't be that dark, right? They would normally have a bit more, and that's because of your indirect light, right? So your indirect light would be different. Again, I can change this here on my directional light, set it to 10, for example, but that's not going to change until I make my lights. That's just the way that works, right? So I'm going to undo that and leave it at 1. And let's see. Yes, we were going to fix the sun, right? So how do we do that? When you're going to make the sun look a little bit more like a sun, you can go to so you scroll down, you're on your directional light, you scroll down, and you see your light shaft occlusion, right? We're going to turn that on because I want some light shafts, and we need some bloom for that. Now, if we turn it on, it's going to be way too bright, right? So we're going to bring our scale down to 0.2, maybe, so 0.02, maybe something like that. Already looks a little bit better, and if we want to test these light shafts, we can try to, look through the trees. Oops. Look through the trees and see if it kind of, it does a little bit. It's not magic, it's not perfect, it's not super realistic, but it does work, right? So at least you have that. What else can you add? Since 4.26, you can add some clouds, which could be interesting. Now, this has an entire system, and I haven't had the time to discover it yet. But I just want you guys to know that it exists, right? That you can add a really cool cloud system, and I do know that when you go to your, let's bring this back, right? If you just leave it like this, it's not going to be great, right? It looks a little bit horrible. But if you were to go back to your directional light, now there is a new tab, so where it's the bottom here somewhere, here, atmospheric sunlight, right? Under atmosphere and cloud. You click on that, and then your clouds, they will get that light as well, right? So that's important. You're going to be able to cast shadows on clouds and cast shadows on atmosphere, all that stuff, quite useful, right? And you might want the shadows to cast, the clouds to cast shadows as well. Let's see, where's that? I'm not sure if you can do that here somewhere. Again, this part I don't know enough about, so I'm not gonna go too deep into that. But I do know that you can create some really cool clouds systems. And if you want better looking clouds, because these are somewhat, they're quite generic, you can bring in a cloud material, right? And bring in your own clouds and make them look really cool. There are many tutorials on this online. I strongly recommend you have a look at them if you want to create really fun looking clouds. What's happening now, by the way, is that our lighting is getting stronger and stronger because obviously the clouds are very white, so it's light is bouncing everywhere. So what we can do, instead of the 10 lux, we can bring it down a bit, maybe to say 5 or something, or even less. But just make sure that your trees, for example, they're still getting light. So this is important. If you keep lowering it, putting it to 1, for example, see, then it becomes less and less realistic, right? So you have to have a feel for it. So maybe 3 or something like that, and see that it works. Also, don't forget, we're getting all this thing here. Which, do we have a reflection capture? Not yet. Important. So you also want one of these in your scene. So you get a reflection, sphere reflection capture. Just type in REF, bring it in there, and trust me, your whole scene is going to look a whole lot better with this in it. Right? Because it captures the light in the right way. Right? So this is your scene on this end. And here at the moment, it's still too bright. It should be darker. And this normally gets fixed once we build the lights. Because, like I said, some of the things need to be rebuilt. So, like, for example, your sphere reflection capture. That one needs to be built. Otherwise, it's not going to work properly. Let's see. Yeah, maybe this would be a good time to... Oh, wait, I'm going to add another thing. So we have a directional light, very important. We have a skylight, which helps with balancing things out. We have a sphere reflection capture, right, which will provide us with interesting reflections. We have a volumetric cloud, right, which is the clouds in the sky, and they are moving, as you can see. You can change all the settings and all that stuff and the amount. Again, I don't know exactly how, I just know that it's possible. I've seen it in some tutorials, but I don't remember exactly how it's done, so I'm not going to waste your time on that. And we have, yeah, we could still use some fog, right? Some like a distance fog type of thing. So you just type in fog, and the one you want is exponential height fog, right? You can also bring in the atmospheric, but exponential height fog already, when we look at it now, you know when you look at mountains and when they're far away, they start getting desaturated and you get some more blue colors from the sky? That's basically what this does. Right, in the distance, you start getting that, and it's very good for these type of scenes, right? Because if you're starting to zoom out a bit, and I keep on zooming out, see, this is basically what. Let's go to a camera speed of 5, for example. So you get that same thing that you get with mountains and with things in over distance, right? So that's very useful, but it also creates a bit of realism. So you want an exponential height fog, definitely. It helps with your world. And, oops, let's go back to a camera of 3, which worked really well, right? What else helps? Another thing on the actual settings, obviously, you have your fog density. Like what we saw in the interior, if we do 1, for example, you get a very strong fog, and then, you want to recreate Silent Hill. Well, this would be one way to do it. Right, and again, like I said, you can also, in the interior, you can do your volumetric fog, and this is more realistic, right, because then you can get all these cool little rays that come out of here, right? That's how you get that. That's how you get that effect, right? So if you want some of that stuff, you can do that with this. Obviously, the fog is way too thick. We're not creating a Silent Hill now, so we're going to bring this back to the default. And a default is basically, you still get your rays. They're very gentle. They're very subtle. You can bring it maybe to, let's say, try this, a 1. And maybe that works. You can get a bit more out of that. So you get some of these light shafts, if that's what you want. Normally you should be able to see some cool ones around here as well. Especially on these planks, if I were to, yeah, some of them. But it works. I know it works for sure. See, you get some of it here. Right, so you got that stuff. That helps a bit. And the temperature of your light, that could help. Say, for example, your directional light, right? If you wanted to make this all look, oh, wait, there's another way. There's so many ways. It's just like in 3D or in thingy. There are a million ways of doing something. Right now, it's all very, it still feels a little bit cold. If you wanted to change this, you could, for example, add temperature to it, right? So use temperature. And now it's at 6,500 Kelvin, which is standard for sunlight, which is quite accurate. But if you wanted something warmer, you can go to 4,005. And you see, now you got something a little bit warmer, something a little bit more like, I don't know, Mediterranean, I guess, or something of the like, or California like, that more warmer feel. So that's how you can do that, but there are other ways. Of course, you can just get a post-processing volume, post-process volume, and this you can view as, oops, let's drag it here, as a, yeah, like it just does a lot of post-processing basically, like post-production stuff, right? So let's bring that also into world lighting. So we got, oops, not as part of a BP sky, but in world lighting. You have to be careful when you drag it, because if you bring it to here, then you make the BP sky sphere a parent of that. We don't want that, right? That's, by the way, how to create parents. Like in 3D parenting and child, that's how to do it. Very, very easy, and it's very useful when you start using cameras and rigs. Like you can create camera rigs and put cameras attached to these rigs. We'll see all that later. It's really fun. Right, post-process volume. Now, what do we want to do here is one thing immediately off the bat. That's to create an infinite extent, an unbound. That means that this post-processing will apply to the entire scene, everything, okay, to the entire environment. All right, so that's what that will do off the bat. Also, I'm starting to see the fog. Wait, where's the fog? Well, I'll get back to the fog a little bit later. It's just that I'm noticing a few things that I might want to change. But so the post-processing volume, where is it? Yeah, so we turned it to the unbound. Unbound means that it affects the entire world. If you did want to have this affect only a part of your world, like for example, in a scene where you have a part that's underwater and one above water, then it makes sense to use this, like you turn it off so you have this not as an infinite extent, but then you can modify this box. You can do that by Shift 4, which is this basically, brush editing, and you can extend this region and say everything inside of this region, for example, apply this post-process. Okay, that's how this works basically. Shift 1 will bring you back to the select. So just these are the editor modes. Your Shift 1, Shift 2, 3, 4, and so forth. Right. So, but we don't want that. Right. Right now we want it to extend to the entire environment. So that's very important. That's really important to know. You find this under post-process volume settings. That's, you have to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and you will find it right there, infinite extent. If you can't find it, just type in infinite and it will pop up. Okay, that's a very cool thing about the details menu. Actually, all of them, they all have search features. So that's how you turn that on. And then once you've got that post-processing volume, there are a few things that are interesting. So in our lens, for example, now they're all open up. That's beautiful. Because I did a search, then everything opens up. Let me try to close this again. Right, you've got exposure, right? That's one thing that we're going to be interested in playing with, right? And this one would be, if I were to turn it on now and I turn this on, you're not really going to see a ton because we haven't really got a lot of exposures yet. If I were to go here, you see that it adapts. The lighting adapts, your exposure adapts. See, if I go back here, it adapts. See, I go out, it becomes brighter outside. That's what this does, right? If I don't change anything. If I were to change it now, see, if I go back out, see, all of a sudden it adapts automatically. It's kind of like our eyes. Our eyes do the same. Okay, when we're in a dark tunnel, the only difference is that the lighting here is not accurate yet. We need to build lights. But if I were to put that to 1 and 1, so 1 here and 1 here, then this is a little bit more accurate, right? Then we get a constant, basically. That means that everywhere is the same. This will be the same, and wherever I look, it will all be the same, right? If I were to turn off this post-processing volume, it still doesn't change anything, but that is the constant, right? This is not the same as turning it off. I think off you have this, basically. But if you want a exposure to be somewhat accurate, again, this doesn't work. So you do want your exposure to be turned on. And you might want to use a 1, 1 for a constant. If you want something to be balanced-ish. It's still not fully accurate, but it's balanced, say. And here as well. So it's somewhat balanced. You can work with this. I mean, it's you know, you can work with something that is a bit more thingy. Or again, if you wanted to play around a bit and say like, well, I want a little bit more difference between the exposure, you can play like, for example, like I did here now. So it's 0.2 to 1. You give yourself a little bit of space to play with, right? Let's build our stuff. Let's build all the lighting. Normally it's only just the reflections, but let me quickly try and see if this changes anything, just to be sure. Okay, and so the lighting has been rebuilt, and we can quickly have a quick look here, and now, yeah, that's what I was talking about. Now we get very dark shadows, right? Because that's how it built it up, right? So here again, and this is something that you're going to experience as well. If this happens after you do rebuild your lights, right? Because nothing says that you have to build your lights. You can, but if you want to, for example, have like, you know, some baking on your walls to make it a little bit more accurate, or have a little bit more control in that, what you can do in order to avoid these really dark shadows, okay, there is a simple trick to do that, and this is what I wanted to show you. In your directional light, right? You have, where is this here? Directional light. Yeah, indirect lighting intensity, right? I'm going to crank this up a whole lot, right? Let's say 50. I mean, this is really over the top, and I'm going to do the same in my skylight, right? Indirect lighting intensity, 50. It's really a lot, but don't panic. It looks like it's crazy now, but don't panic. And by the way, also, when you just do it here, you can't see it here yet. You'll see it here outside, but you won't be able to see it indoor yet. In here, you'll see it a little bit, but it's not what you're basically looking for. So if I were to, again, like I said, I go here and I put this to 1, see, like the way it was. Here you can see some of this indirect lighting, but that's, again, you need to rebuild it to get the right thingy. So where is this? The skylight. Go back to 1. If I were to bring it back to 1, see, here it's accurate now. But let's start maybe just with this one only, just with directional light. Let's bring this to 50, right? Like really crank it up so that we can get these shadows looking a bit better. Right? Let's do a quick build of the lights only. Okay, and then so what basically happened in the meantime while I sped this up is that I realized that I canceled it because I put on the directional light, this was not the one that had to be on 50, the indirect. It's on the skylight, right? I realized in the middle of the building of lights that yeah, this is what was going on. So the light shadows, or I mean the shadows are much softer. They're not as strong as like dark black anymore. This you can still have sometimes, it's artifacts, and that I'm just also going to be honest with you, I don't know why that sometimes. It's maybe because of your texture streaming. I mean the way, yeah, the build to texture streaming, the way that sometimes set up, it creates some of these artifacts. It happens with light baking sometimes, and it can be fixed, but again, I'm not 100% sure. But this is what fixes your lights. If you were, for example, saying that they were very dark, like 100%, now you have a little bit more bounce light in here, right? With that indirect lighting that I was talking about. And it looks a little bit better, okay? At least for indoors, because that's a big one. Okay, this is the reason why I have these scenes here, these 3D buildings here, to show you that issue as well, because I know that that's one of the things that you guys are going to try at home, and it's going to create that type of issues. So again, and I keep repeating this, I'm not a lighting expert. There will still be things that I just don't know how to do, and that I will be stuck with. But this is my information that I've got on lighting and indirect lighting. So how you can create an outdoor scene, how you can change the lights in your, this one is really gold, your post-processing volume, especially because you got your color grading. You've got so much that you can still just fix right here. Your white balance, if you wanted to play with your white balance, and again your temperatures and all that stuff, you can play with that as well. You don't really want to be too crazy on that, but you can do it. You can anything really. Your global, you can change your saturation, your contrast. If you wanted your contrast to go, let's see, if you wanted your contrasts to go in this direction or that direction, you've got really a lot of options here. I strongly recommend you just leave it all at 0, or the way it was basically. I think it's 1. 1, 1, 1 everywhere, and then maybe you can play around with the actual value here, right? Like low contrast or very high contrast. You can go past thingy and go to 10, like really go crazy. But it's just so that you know that it's here, right? It's important to know that in color grading and all that stuff, you can do that. You can do that here. You can fix your gamma if you wanted to change your gamma. Same here. You've got all that stuff that you can change to get the perfect looking scene that you need. Okay, and that's all in your post-processing volume. Your gains, your offsets, your shadows, your midtones, your highlights, your film, reflections, all that type of stuff, global illumination, it's all there, right? So inside your post-processing volume, you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you might have a look into. And so there you go. That's just in a quick nutshell, okay? There's so many more things that we could go into in lighting. And like I said, I strongly recommend for you to have a look at other artists out there, other people on YouTube. Here's stuff like, for example, on the horizon here, there are things that I would like to change, for example, so that it doesn't all look very white. And I know you can do that in your colors here. I know you can change that. Bring this down, for example. See, stuff like that. You can do a lot of things and change them here on the fly, right? To get a different type of feel for the type of sky that you want to go. Or you see, you can change all of that stuff here in your fog colors to get really the look that you're hoping for, right? And then you'll have to fix your skies and stuff like that, you know, your lights on the sky and so forth, right? And your distance and all of that. So these are the main ones, right? So the main ones being, again, like I said, your directional light, very important. Your the second one we brought in, I think, was the skylight, which changes a lot. It really fixes a lot of things. And again, you can change a lot of things here. You can say that it doesn't cast shadows, or it does, if you want thick shadows or not. See, because that also already changes it here. If you were saying that your shadows were too dark here interiorly, so you know, here's with your actual shadows on. Which is realistic in a way, you know, it kind of does do this. Or you can just take them off, which is not realistic, but you can look into your thing. Or if you only need a shot from here and it's too dark and you just quickly want to fix that, you could maybe try it like that. There are a lot of things that you can combine together and see which effects or results you want. So there you go. That's it. That's your skylight, your reflection capture, you have to add it, your post-processing volume, your exponential height fog. You can also add a volumetric height fog. I think that's what it's called. Wait, let's fog, atmospheric fog, that's the one. Atmospheric fog, if I were to add it right now, it's taxing, but it does do things. If I were to take off my exponential height fog, it creates additional something. I'm just, yeah, I'm not experienced enough in this one but I know that you can do a lot with this one as well, and it's really fun. You can multiply sun effects and all that stuff. It's quite fun, but I'm just going to delete this one because, again, I just don't know enough about it. I use exponential height fog quite a lot because that one is quite popular. And there you go, your clouds. You can either have them or not. and then modify the sun a bit. See, now when I look up, it looks a bit like there's actual like smog, like what you'd be used to in California. So all that stuff, yeah, these are all the type of setups that you can do. All right, thank you very much for stopping by. I hope you guys liked this one on lighting and post-processing. And hopefully it gives you a basic start-off point to create your own lighting that you can create your own sets with. Again, don't forget, I keep forgetting to tell things. Directional light also. Now with all these things in place, look, if you were to quickly, and that's the cool thing about this, update, right? You get, there are ways to do a night scene. Night scene basically brings this down, but I've seen on YouTube, by the way, that there is a better way of doing that, which I do not have enough. Wait, let's update the sky now. Refresh the material. Wait, are we? Let's bring the directional light a little bit lower. Let's do something like that. Go to BP sphere, refresh the material. Let's turn it on and off again. Not sure if it's, yeah, it's in the right place. But because, exactly, of course, but because we have this, then there you go. You have to be careful with all this stuff with your exponential height fog, because that has a different color, obviously, right? And that's gonna not do the same. So if you were here, then you want to change this to a different color, because colors at this time of day are different. And obviously you have to be careful with this because it creates awkward effects here. So when changing things, you have to understand that it affects all of this stuff. And your density, you might want to lower it considerably so that you get different type of effects here. For example, you get more of a dusk type of feeling. So you can do a lot. And if you wanted to do a night shot, I learned online, but it's with a sky atmosphere. But again, and you can link also your sun to your sky atmosphere. But again, I don't want to risk trying to show you and then failing. But I know that that's where you do it. So it's with the sky atmosphere. And then you can also do the same thing. You can rotate it and create really cool effects. Okay, there you go. That was it. This time I'm actually really going. And hope you guys liked it. And then we'll see each other in the next video, where we will be tackling, this is the next one. Where is it? Geometry. Well, we'll talk about geometry and how you can create your base geometry to add static meshes on top of. So it's kind of like modeling inside Unreal Engine. All right. See you guys in the next one.